Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It is True Crime Tuesday yet again, and today we will be talking about the girl who did the unthinkable only to get her first taste of freedom. Today we will be talking about the Gypsy Rose Blanchard story. Gypsy Rose Blanchard was born on July 27, 1991 in Louisiana. A short while before she was born, her parents, then 24-year-old Claudine or Deedee and 17-year-old Rod, decided to go their separate ways, leaving Gypsy in the custody of her mother. Because of this, Deedee and Gypsy moved in with Deedee's father and stepmother. Now, they were all doing well. However, when Gypsy was 3 months old, Deedee noticed something a bit off about her daughter. She brought her to the hospital for tests and monitoring. However, the hospital concluded that Gypsy was completely fine. However, Deedee was still convinced that her daughter was suffering from sleep apnea. And because of this, ever since she was a baby, Gypsy would sleep with a CPAP machine. When Gypsy was 7 years old, she got into a minor motorcycle accident with her grandfather, resulting to her having an abrasion on the knee. Now, Deedee insisted that Gypsy needed multiple surgeries in order for her knee to get better. However, it just got worse over time. This resulted to Gypsy getting diagnosed with multiple sclerosis and needing to use a wheelchair. Deedee and Gypsy would soon move out due to various conflicts with Deedee's father and stepmother, one of them being the fact that she once got arrested for writing bad checks. But the main reason being her family suspected her of gradually poisoning their stepmother by mixing in weed killer with her food. After moving out or getting kicked out of the house, Deedee and Gypsy stayed at a public housing and paid their dues and hospital bills with the cash assistance given to them by the government, as well as the $1,200 in child support given by Rod every month. Sometime around this, Gypsy was also diagnosed with leukemia, and as if things weren't difficult enough for this little family, 2005 came, and so did Hurricane Katrina, and they lost everything: their home, their possessions, their records. They were also advised to move to Missouri in order to get more assistance for Gypsy's ailments. So they packed everything that they had left and relocated to Missouri, where they were welcomed warmly. They first stayed at a shelter for individuals with special needs before Habitat for Humanity decided to step in and help them by building them a wheelchair-accessible home complete with a hot tub to help with Gypsy's multiple sclerosis and muscle atrophy. Muscle atrophy or muscular atrophy, I'm not really sure. News eventually got out, and a ton of other charities were so moved by Deedee and Gypsy's story. A single mom who was raising a severely sick child on her own. Monetary donations started flooding in. They were also given free flights to hospitals in different states, free trips to Walt Disney World, free concert tickets, you name it. The two would also often speak at events, serving as an inspiration to other little boys and girls. But here's where everything gets strange. On Gypsy's 18th birthday, her father Rod wanted to greet her a happy birthday. But before he could even speak to his daughter, Deedee warns him not to tell Gypsy her real age. Deedee says that Gypsy thinks that she's only 14, and Rod did find this very strange. However, he brushed it off after Deedee reminded him that Gypsy had the mental capacity of a 7-year-old due to premature birth. Not long after this, Deedee then takes Gypsy to a new neurologist who did numerous tests on her. After getting the results, this doctor began to ask questions, telling Deedee that he sees nothing wrong with Gypsy at all, and asked her who gave them this diagnosis. The doctor also asked for Gypsy's medical history and records, but Deedee claims that they lost all of it during Hurricane Katrina, along with Gypsy's birth certificate. This neurologist found everything very suspicious and even got the attention of his other colleagues. But these doctors all dismissed him, saying that this family is already going through so much, and the suspicion isn't going to help even a bit. Now, he eventually stopped prying into this, but then an anonymous caller decided to call the police, saying that he or she suspected that Gypsy was being mistreated by her mother. The authorities then came in for a wellness check, and not seeing anything wrong in the household, they left afterwards. In 2010, Gypsy decides to create an account at a Christian dating website behind her mother's back. And this is where she meets Nick Godejohn, a troubled guy who seemed to be around her age. Nick was a regular guy from Wisconsin. However, he was diagnosed with autism as a child. He also had a history of mental health problems and a police record for indecent exposure. So the two began talking and soon start an online relationship. And because of how strict Deedee was, Gypsy was only able to access the internet at nighttime when Deedee's sleeping pills had kicked in. They also shared a joint Facebook account under the name Blanchard, which still hasn't been deleted, by the way. But of course, Gypsy created a new secret account so she could talk to Nick every night. Their relationship started off as any normal teen romance, but things soon started to escalate. And when it did, they escalated very quickly. Nick introduced Gypsy to the concept of BDSM, saying that he had multiple personalities and he wanted her to play multiple characters to match those personalities. Now, you might be wondering how Gypsy got access to these wigs and costumes, but she was very childlike and was into cosplay, so she had costumes and she had to shave her head often because of the leukemia, which resulted to her having wigs as well. And there are actually quite a lot of photos of Gypsy wearing these costumes online. But anyway, of course, Deedee can never find out about this because she was very overprotective of her daughter. So Gypsy then tells her 24-year-old neighbor about Nick instead. Now, this neighbor was like an older sister to Gypsy, and she tells her about how she met Nick and how they had been talking every single night without her mother's knowledge. This neighbor then tells Gypsy to be careful because there are predators out there, which is very true. Gypsy assures her that Nick was a nice guy and that he wasn't a creep, and that they were trying to figure out a way for them to meet in person. So Gypsy and Nick came up with a plan. She sent him money for bus fare from Wisconsin all the way to Missouri. Gypsy was going to see the new live-action Cinderella movie with her mother, and Nick would be there too, making it seem like this was a casual run-in at the movie theater. That way, it would seem like Gypsy and Nick had just met there and that he could meet Deedee as well. But of course, Deedee found Nick kind of weird and creepy. I mean, he was a grown man watching Cinderella by himself, so that was a little strange. Sometime during the movie, Gypsy was able to convince Deedee to let her go to the bathroom on her own. Now, miraculously, Deedee allowed her to go, and I don't know how long Gypsy was gone for, but she met up with Nick to go have sex with him for the very first time in one of the bathroom stalls. They got away with it, and Deedee never questioned anything, thinking that Gypsy took a while because she was in a wheelchair. After this event, everything went down smoothly. Gypsy continued with her medication and various treatments while maintaining an online relationship with Nick behind her mother's back. Everything was going as normal until one day on June 14th, 2015. An unusual and rather scary post was made on Deedee and Gypsy's joint Facebook account. The post read, "That bitch is dead." And although this could be normal language for some people, this was Deedee and Gypsy, the sweetest little family, the mom who is single-handedly caring for her sick daughter. And this was very unusual for them because none of the two spoke like this, ever. Now, this really confused their friends, asking if they were okay or if their Facebook was hacked. Alarmingly, a reply was made by the account saying, "I fucking slashed that fat pig and raped her sweet innocent daughter. Her scream was so fucking loud. LOL." This, of course, alarmed everyone who saw it, including their neighbors, who quickly dropped everything they were doing and rushed to the Blanchard home, trying to see if anyone was there. Their car was in the driveway, but no one answered the door. The neighbors then called 911 for help, and this is when the police found Deedee, dead on her own bed, having received multiple stab wounds. Now, Gypsy, on the other hand, was nowhere to be found. The neighbors and the police were able to locate her wheelchair inside of the home. However, there were no signs of Gypsy. Now, of course, everyone feared the worst. How would Gypsy survive without her treatments and medications? And most importantly, how would she survive without her sole caretaker, her mother, who is now deceased? They all thought the same thing. They needed to find Gypsy and they needed to do it quickly. But where do they begin? Everyone was in a state of shock, panic, and confusion when one of the neighbors, Gypsy's friend, came forward to the police, telling them about Gypsy's secret online relationship with a guy named Nick. However, this was all she knew. She didn't even know where he was from or what his last name was. The authorities then decided to take a look at the cryptic Facebook post and traced back its IP address to Nick Godejohn. They found out his home address in Wisconsin where the post was written, and the very next day, Gypsy was found in his family home alive and well. Everyone in the community felt relieved now knowing that Gypsy was all right, until the police held a press conference saying that not everything is as it seems. Nick and Gypsy were both brought in for questioning, and seemingly very confused with no idea with what was going on, Gypsy lost it when she was told about her mother's demise. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. She was unable to control her emotions until the police told her to drop the act because Nick had already confessed to everything. According to Nick, Gypsy asked him to kill Deedee so she could finally be free. And since he loved her, he agreed. Now, Gypsy, becoming one of the main suspects, of course, shocked and infuriated their friends and family. How could this sweet and innocent girl be involved with her own mother's vicious murder? No one wanted to believe it until they saw it with their own eyes. When the trials began and Gypsy walked into the room, the people that knew her were in complete disbelief. She was walking just fine, she seemed healthy, and she had a full head of hair. During this time, it had already been a decade since Deedee and Gypsy had relocated to Missouri, and everyone knew how ill Gypsy was. So seeing her doing so well, not needing her wheelchair nor her feeding tube, was a shock to everyone. Turns out Deedee was abusing Gypsy, and she was never sick. All of it was made up. When I first heard about this case, it was also my first time hearing about Munchausen syndrome, which is a psychological disorder wherein someone pretends to be ill or deliberately produces symptoms of illness in themselves. And in this case, it was Munchausen by proxy, which means that the caretaker of a child either makes up fake symptoms or causes real symptoms to make it look like their child is sick. And sadly, this is often done by a mother and is a form of child abuse. Once the investigation started, the authorities found Deedee's stash of medications, a whole cabinet or pantry of it. Now, this stash also included tranquilizers, which would explain why Gypsy would often be drowsy. Sometimes she'd also be drooling. And she also seemed to have no strength nor control of her body, and this also resulted to her speaking becoming slurred. This poor girl spent her whole life going in and out of the hospital, getting medication and treatments for ailments that she did not have. She also have gone through a lot of surgeries. on her ears, on her eyes, and she never needed any of them. When she was examined by new doctors, they found out that there was nothing wrong with her health at all. And just to give you a recap, Gypsy and everyone in their lives, including her biological father, were made to believe that she had sleep apnea, asthma, leukemia, multiple sclerosis, and muscle atrophy. Along with this, she was also said to have been hearing and vision impaired and had the mental capacity of a 7-year-old, none of which are true. But not only that. When this all went down in 2015, everyone thought that Gypsy was 18 or 19 years old because that's what Deedee told everyone. Even Gypsy had no idea what her real age was. But it was then revealed that Gypsy was somehow able to access her original birth certificate, the one Deedee said was lost during Hurricane Katrina, only to find out that she was actually born in 1991, making her 23 during that time. So everything in her life was a lie. She had known for quite some time but went along with her mother's act, scared for her life. Gypsy says that she would tell her mom that she felt completely fine, and this would often result to Deedee getting angry and striking her before giving her medicines, which would eventually make her feel unwell. In the same year, Gypsy was offered a plea deal which she accepted. She will serve 10 years in prison for second-degree murder, while her boyfriend Nick, on the other hand, who actually committed the murder, was sentenced to life imprisonment in 2019 without the possibility of parole. Now, not long after getting into prison, the two broke up. Gypsy, who is now 31 years old, recently got married inside prison. She will be out in 2025 or maybe even in December of 2023, depending on how her parole hearing goes. I also watched an interview featuring Deedee's father and stepmother. And when Deedee died, her remains were actually cremated and given back to her family. And according to them, they flushed her ashes down the toilet, saying that she finally got what she deserved. And I'm not even sure if that's too extreme or she really did deserve to get flushed down the toilet. Now, I'm actually very torn on this case. I do feel sorry for Gypsy because she went through so much. But did she really have to kill her mother just to get her freedom? I think that she could have just run away, but then again, she probably felt as if there was no other way out of this situation, which is also understandable. I do feel very sorry for Nick though, because in my opinion, he was a very troubled young man and he was even diagnosed with autism. However, I think he was manipulated into killing Deedee, and he shouldn't have gotten life imprisonment. In my opinion, he maybe should have gotten time at a facility, at a mental facility that would be able to help him with his troubles. I would love to hear your thoughts on this case. Please let me know what you think in the comment section below. But I guess, yeah, that's where I'll end today's video. Thank you so much for listening to Gypsy Rose's story. I hope you guys found that interesting. If there are any other cases that you would like for me to cover, please let me know by leaving a comment. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all on my next video.